Why don't you tell us about your art here?
Oh, did anybody see this? You saw that book up at the Heritage Center. This is Chief Joseph. He was a famous Indian chief. They actually brought him through Bismarck in 1877 after they captured him and his people. He's a famous chief. He was chief of the Nez Perce when Lewis and Clark went out there in that area of Washington or whatever. When those people first saw Lewis and Clark, his group of men, they were the first white men they'd ever seen. They called them dog men because they had beards and stuff. These hairy guys they'd never seen, and they said they kind of smelled bad, as you can imagine. His people were known for two things. They used to make these kind of bows out of some kind of antlers that were pretty good bows, I guess. And then later on, when the horses came north, they became horse breeders. But they developed the Appaloosa breed of horse, which you sometimes see in westerns and stuff. And when the cavalry was chasing him, when they kind of had it out with some of the white people, after the 49ers went out to California and the gold kind of petered out in California, they moved north into their land. And they weren't supposed to go on the Indian land, but you know how the white man never upholds the laws.
I uphold the law.
For the white guys, you know, they let these guys go in there and look for gold and stuff on their land, which they weren't supposed to be doing. So then they tried to take their land away from them. They went on the run. He had about 850 people or somewhere around there, including old people, women and children. And I think he had like over 700 horses with him that they took with him. And they kept evading the cavalry. And so he became kind of famous. And then they got into Montana. They wanted to go up and join Sitting Bull. Sitting Bull was holed up after he killed Custer across the Canadian border. They knew that that wasn't part of the United States, so the army couldn't go up there because that was another country. And they got into Montana. And they were only about a day's ride, but their people were so tired of running away, and every time they'd get away from one army, here the cavalry would be again. They couldn't figure it out. How did the cavalry get here? Well, when they were going to get up to Canada, they were about a day or two from Canada. They were so tired then they wanted to rest, and he didn't want to rest. He said, no, we got to get to Canada, then we'll rest. A couple more days we'll be there. Well, the people wanted to rest, and they turned it over to some other chief, and they were going to take a few days to rest. And that's where Colonel Nelson Miles left from what is now Miles City. I'm assuming that Miles City is named after Colonel Nelson Miles, the man who captured him. It was an army outpost at the time. But he got a telegraph telling where these guys were, so he headed them off. And because they stopped and rested, he captured them.